Welcome back to Arise Prime Time, where we offer perspectives on the news and talking points of the day. I'm Charles Aniegolu. Now let's continue our examination of the extreme political disorder in the beleaguered state of Rivers, a state that's becoming something of a political war zone. Another week of crisis there has sparked many more weeks of political combat as the warring parties daily head to the front line. The situation remains critical, and as the attacks from both sides continue, the impact is starting to halt the advance of governance. So could this political disaster that's daily unfolding have been avoided? Or does the problem go much deeper than the two individuals involved? In other words, are we looking at a systemic crisis that will require much more fundamental root and branch reforms? Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by Austin Aigbe, who, as a member of the West African Solidarity Network, works to support inclusive democracy and governance, and by Baba Yusuf, who is a policy strategist and the group CEO of the Global Investment and Trade Company. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Let me come to you first, Baba Yusuf. We're going to talk about River State. That'll be the bulk of our discussion. But before we get there, we had Honorable Obi Agwocha from the Labour Party making some very interesting points about what they're trying to do to reform the electoral process in Nigeria and to try and put INEC on the right path of rectitude. What are your thoughts on that?
I totally agree. Build up to the elections, some of us have been advocating for, recalibration of our electoral process, and one of the things I push for is a structural change for, INEC. I believe to help INEC, we need to deconstruct INEC. I belong to the school of thought that it has become a behemoth of a structure for Nigeria at the moment, at this stage of our political evolution, regulation, operations and oversight. At the same time, I feel that should be part of the reform of the electoral process, apart from, the nuggets within the Electoral Act and that. But more importantly, Charles, I listened to the honorable member. I listened to Professor Pat Utomi. He had a session with you and a lot of conversation, elitist conversation with regards to a mega party. My contribution to that is, unless they are able to deal with the issue of, internal party politics, the issue of being an effective opposition will be a mirage. And indeed, like I said here before, the political parties are a microcosm of the country. And if political leaders are not able to, ensure that there's internal democracy,
right,
and they said it is an SPV, how do you have an SPV to achieve political success if you are not able to maintain that balance?
An SPV obviously is special purpose vehicle.
To my mind, that is the way, but then it's a work in progress.
Right. Let me put the same question to you, Austin. What are your thoughts on what the honourable gentleman was saying?
I think what my colleague just talked about is what INEC has sincerely agreed to unbundle itself. I mean, that's the only way. The burden on INEC is way too much. But beyond that is to also listen. What honorable member talked about a few minutes ago resembles the kind of architecture in our Francophone countries. For example, we just came out from Senegal, and we all came here and be talking about, what
you were telling us about what happened there.
So you see, the Constitutional Court of Senegal, in the same way with all of the Francophone countries, does play a huge role in the electoral system. So in our Nigerian case, the Constitutional Court is far away until someone approaches the court. There is no case. So what the honorable talked about is, at the point of casting a vote, at the point of writing the result, while you are transmitting result, send a CCT copy ahead so you don't have to go to INEC. You know the technicality involved.
Yes.
INEC knows there's a threshold of time. You need to apply for this. They delay the process, sometimes deliberately. So when that is with a court, there won't be any form of delay or thereabout. But beyond that, is that all of the glitches we saw in 2023 must be truly addressed. Let it be written, because in our Nigerian context, we like it written down. But elsewhere, once people know the philosophy, you just run with it. But let it be written in black and white. If we have to make the electoral law as big as this, we may have to do it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's turn to somewhere where there is continuing chaos and crisis, Rivers State. What is your assessment, Baba Yusuf, of how the political conflict in Rivers State is affecting governance in the state and by extension the lives of the people? Because we know how there's been this pat ball between the two sort of combatants, but what impact is it having on the people? What sense do you get of what it's doing to the lives of the people there?
Abysmal. I mean, it's beyond the sense, like you said, it's beyond sense. It's a reality. It's the reality of the peoples of Rivers State. Social, political, economic, whatnot, because the governor is completely distracted. I mean, for us, we pack aside all these razzmatazz of going to commission one bridge somewhere or route somewhere. Operationally, the governor's focus is fighting his political godfather. And if you look at it from that perspective, he is hamstrung. We saw what happened with the budget proposal. How do you run a government without a budget? We know that there's a proviso that allowed the governor, or the president to push a budget, but onto a particular threshold beyond which he cannot move. He has to get a proper approval by the legislature. And then we have all the judicial, logjam that we are having. So it is completely almost River State is actually in reality at a standstill as far as governance is concerned, apart from the photo. And of course, people are going to hospital, people need to have education and all that. So the governor has already lost completely Wanya to this crisis. And the way it seems is going to be like that for a while. And therefore, two political operatives or leaders in the state, because of that, have decided to throw away the mandate that both of them swore to uphold. Both of them campaigned, first of all, to deliver good governance. Mr. Johnson Wike, Excellency, pushing for Fubara, and now because of their personal interest, have decided to throw the entire people of Rivers into the ocean because of their personal interest, which is, unfortunate, because these are leaders that are supposed to be role models for the people of Rivers, and indeed the people of Nigeria. It's a sordid story. For me as a Nigerian, even if I'm not a Rivers State, because whatever happens to, don't forget, Rivers is a critical hub of Nigeria. And I believe that the way Amana Rivers is like the nose of Nigeria, and what touches the nose touches the eyes, Charles. It's unfortunate, and I hope and pray that reason and fear of God will prevail on these two critical stakeholders. And the other people around them, fanning the embers of crisis.
It's got to be.
If truly you love the people of Rivers,
right,
as Yusuf Wike or Fubara, you will rise above that tide, so that tomorrow there will be a state.
It has to be more than the fear of God. But let me put it, although you made some very good points there, let me ask you this, Austin. Do you think, or let me put it this way, what do you think of the announcement by Governor Fubara of this probe into the administration of Yusuf Wike? How will that affect the current conflict there?
I begin by trying to look at it from the nexus of conflict theory. Whether I like it or not, in conflict theory, there are those who benefit.
Yes.
And I think that the people of Rivers will benefit. Maybe contrary to, will benefit because Fubara will need to do all to secure this commitment of these people to stand by him, knowing that...
Yeah, but he has to get around to doing that, which is the point he's making.
So the going around to do it is to do exactly what Oshomole did in Edo State. I mean, we have had this precedent in Nigeria. Rivers is just like, I think, the second or third state that is running an affair with about 4, 5, or 9 Senate parliamentarians running the affairs. But the sense I make is this, that for Rivers, what Fubara wants to now do, again, people are now, like I said, fanning. I mean, there are those who just, come on, can't you just institute a probe and then let's put him on top in a defense mode? By the time Wike is in a defense mode, he relaxes on the pursuit. I mean, this is more of a tip. I mean, it's technical and it's strategic. And I think that the proposal is, one, they are going to be calling Wike out you have to come and defend yourself. Right now, he's already saying it, even though prejudice-wise, he ought not to be saying all of those things. He has said that virtually, some kind of contract were never paid for, and here you are, yes, a weekend making all of those noise while he was governor. And if those things now come to the fore of the Nigerian state, people are going to now begin to put a flashlight on Wike to say, oh, you mean all of those noise you were making?
So it is potentially a successful strategy.
It is a strategy.
Potentially.
And it is conflict theory, and it's a conflict strategy.
Very interesting. But in the context of everything that's going on, Baba Yusuf, what worries you the most about the political crisis going forward? Because, I mean, he made an interesting point, Austin Aigbe did, that ultimately the people will benefit as a result of this country, because it'll put more fire to Fubara, the governor, to try and perform.
I totally agree in an ideal situation. I totally agree with the Edo scenario and other places. But also, let's us forget that there are other scenarios that didn't play out the way we are expecting. If the people of Rivers will benefit, then they should have been benefiting before now. The game is different. We have a different president with a different personality and a different scope of interest. And we have two political gladiators with different temperaments. Let me remind us of the days of Governor Chris Ngige, Charles. You remember things got so bad with an assertive president to the extent that an AIG, was alleged to be the one to abduct a sitting governor.
Absolutely.
Charles.
Extraordinary.
Let us not forget that. It's about 20-something years ago, like yesterday. Now, this is a scenario that we should be more akin to consider in strategic consideration as to what may happen when things are not contained in Rivers, because they can be that brutal. And we know what happened to Governor Chris, and we know how he was not able to actually deliver, and how the people of Anambra lost out a lot in that. So it is going to get worse, obviously, because if Fubara has the support of his people, quote and unquote, let us not forget that even aftermath of the election, some people were saying the party, the governorship election was rigged, like the Labour Party, to say he was rigged into the government, in favor or whatever. Now, that being said, this is what you call a fight to finish with a person that has, quote and unquote, the support of the president, commander-in-chief. So when I saw the stakeholders of Rivers writing to the Inspector General, I was smiling, because the Inspector General of Police reports to a principal that is swaying to one side, for want of a better phrase. So you need to look at it from that strategic perspective to say, is it actually really about the people? And the way I see it at the end of the day, like I said in another fora, the Rivers scenario will become a new case study, different from Edo, more likely towards the Anambra situation. I don't believe President Tinubu will allow that. I don't believe President Tinubu will allow that to happen, because slightly different from President Obasanjo, he's a little bit sensing, and I think he's beginning to see that. I hope the reason will prevail, because Mr. President will play a key role, because the litigations will further exacerbate the issue and prolong this fight. Political action and reconciliation at the highest level will be what may likely bring an end to this logjam.
Do you think, Austin, that the political parties could have built some form of fortification, if you like, to prevent this crisis from getting to this stage, by having rules, for instance, that force Godfathers to conform to certain mores, recognizing that interfering directly in the governance of a state is repugnant to the constitutional right of the governor to govern, and would ultimately be harmful to the people of the state?
Good question.
Well, maybe not political party, because that would have been a constitutional direction, because otherwise, all of the Godfathers aren't using political party structure. They are using their own structure. So what is there is that there need to be some level of gap. But if you look at Fubara Wike concern, this crisis did not just begin. It began before swearing in. So people are looking at the moment without looking at what happened before the swearing in, when Fubara had invited Wike to attend the swearing in, and there was some form of conflict. As we speak in Rivers, all the parties are technically aligned with the governor, particularly the APC candidate in that poll had even written some mistake jargon on Twitter, supposedly that someone made a mistake with this. So there's some support going ahead, and that strategic communication to the IG was a signal. The thing is putting the IG on an international alert notice that if you break this, these guys are conversant with what has happened. This is historical because you're looking at, okay, if you happen like this, this is the way to go. If you happen in Anambra, this is the way to go. They have done their political mapping. So if this is a trajectory, this is a trajectory. Right. If you listen to the governor, he made some very categorical statements. He said if you got someone with a gun, if that the gun was not on safety, it could have shot us. So we will not take it for granted. We will develop our strategy. And part of the strategy is the one we mentioned just now, going ahead to institute some kind of probe. Yeah. But beyond that, it's going to begin to silence all of the forces of Wike in the state, especially recognizing that he, Fubara, does have the support of the former allies of Wike, particularly former governors, former national chair.
Because they've all been fighting each other one after the other.
Yes, and if you also look at it, at some point, the former godfather of the state, maybe not godfather, Amechi, is going to soon come out in support of Fubara. Take it, and by the time that happens, there will be a convergence of a Fubara movement, and then Wike will no longer come to Rivers State.
Well, we'll have to see how that goes. We've got literally a couple of minutes left. So as briefly as possible, someone suggested that it's not about victory for Fubara or defeat for Wike or vice versa, because that's purely on an emotional level. The point was made that the focus should be on the dysfunctional system that allows each successive governor to steal as much as he wants and to use that to build a structure that allows him to do whatever he wants in the state.
Totally agree. It can be said better, Charles. And to add to that, going forward, for the citizens, for you and I to recognize that reactions will not contain the vested interest. That we need to take our destinies in our hands as a people and not wait until after elections and start chasing these issues after the fact when people have been sworn in and given all the instrument of power. And then we start chasing and start lamenting, and then they will allow us to continue rolling on the platform of fundamental human rights. But it doesn't change the reality because they will still push ahead and continue doing what you, like you said, entrenching themselves with the instrument of office. And therefore, I will leave us with a quote from Rohini Lendekani that says, and I quote, that citizens should co-create good governance. We cannot be mere consumers of good governance. We must be participants. We must be co-creators. As citizens, we have to co-create good governance. We cannot outsource it and hope to be passively happy consumers. Like everything worth its while, good governance must be earned. And therefore, not just for Rivers, the entire citizens of Nigeria should be politically active, politically conscious, but be participatory in legislation, in election, in activism going forward. Otherwise, the moment they take the office, they will be trampling all of us, and the scenario of the elephant fighting, and we the citizens will become the grass.
And on that note, I want to thank both of you very much indeed. A very, very animated, interesting conversation. Baba Yusuf is a policy strategist and the group CEO of the Global Investment and Trade Company, and Austin Aigbe is a member of the West African Solidarity Network who works to support inclusive democracy and governance. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
And do have a jolly good weekend.
Thank you very much.
That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again next week. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, bye-bye, and thank you for watching.